G'day guys, welcome from sunny Queensland, and it is, true to its word, it is sunny, it's beautiful. It's a pretty cold, crisp morning here though. It's 14 degrees, but when I woke up this morning it was about 8. So as we Brits would call it, brass monkey weather. I just thought I would introduce you to another one of my trucks. Yep, I've got more than one. Sometimes feels like I've got a bloody fleet of them, but this is one truck that I am actually in the process of really sort of knuckling down and working on, and spending just about every hour God sends on it, cause look, it's undercover, which is a massive achievement for me because I'm in the process of trying to build a shed. As I mentioned in another one of my vids, and it's just so difficult to get hold of builders, and it also costs a truckload of cash. But this one's undercover, so it's a lot easier to work on vehicles when the weather outside is being less than kind. So here she is. This is my Dodge WC52. She's American built. She is a weapons carrier. So she was designed to transport munitions and machine guns and what have you to and from the front lines, and also, you know, to pick up troops, soldiers, the odd stray soldier wandering around. They could sit on the back quite comfortably. I've had this one now since July 2019, and I stumbled across an advert on Gumtree, and the fella was actually selling her. So I drove all the way down to Tamworth in New South Wales. It was about an 8-9 hour trip. We got there very late at night. And it was super cold then as well, because June, July in Oz is our winter, whereas everyone else is generally going into their summer months. So it was mega cold. But when I found her, she was up against a great big shed in the middle of nowhere. She wasn't tarped or covered, she was just exposed to the elements. So as you can see, she is a truck that has simply been running until she ran out of steam, and then she was just parked up and left. Surprisingly though, even though she's been exposed to the elements here in Australia, which can be pretty ferocious, she's actually in really good nick. You can see she's been covered in about 6 or 7 different layers of paint, and then there's me trying to strip things back and putting red oxide on it. But otherwise she's in a really good state. Very little rust, you know, there's rust in some of the floors, you know, in the areas that can cop a little bit of rain and water damage, but otherwise she's pretty damn good. Okay, so when I found her, there was a lot missing from her. She was a working vehicle, so I would imagine when she was purchased after the war surplus, these guys, the owners, the new owners, just basically, you know, they just overloaded them with stuff. They drove them until they couldn't drive anymore. And, you know, if an engine was seized or something, they would just literally pull the engine out and replace it with anything they can find. And the same goes with spare parts, which is why on this girl, a lot of stuff was missing. There's the windscreen. And this particular windscreen, as you can see, is a slightly different shade of army green, or what's left of army green. Well, that's because even though this is a period original windscreen, she didn't have one when I found her. I don't know why. But, you know, perhaps it was damaged or something, and then the owner just whipped it off and couldn't be asked to fix it, and obviously couldn't replace it because parts are very hard to come by. So this is a replacement. The fenders are off. You can see those. They're propped up against the toolboxes at the back, or the wheel arches, the rear wheel arches. I'll tell you more about that in a minute. The hood's gone, and the hood's been tucked away someplace else. And what passed for a bumper on the front of this has also been pulled off. That was actually about 5 or 6 feet of railway girder, and some fella had actually tacked it on, welded it on in place of what should be there, which is a winch. The 52 model, this is a 52, actually had a winch on the front of it and an extra foot of chassis, but unfortunately that has been cut off. But I'm lucky, equally fortunate, to have the extensions, the missing pieces, which I managed to source from another WC52 that was, well, you couldn't do much with it because about 2/3 of the chassis was gone and everything else. So I just cut those bits off and kept them. And I also have the bumperettes, and those are basically, they sit on the front here, either side, and just afford the front end of the truck a bit of protection. Okay, Okay, so this is where all the magic happens. This is a T214. I think you can get about 90, 95 horsepower out of these things. It's not particularly fast, but they've got a bit of grunt. They're very reliable. It's an inline 6 engine. If I scan in here, you can actually make out the engine number. I think it's the block number, or maybe that's the block number. Anyway, that engine there, see it says T214, that engine is actually original to this truck. So in other words, when this truck rolled off the production line on July 16th, 1943, I know this because I have a build card, it actually had this engine in here. So she's been chugging away for, what, 70, 80 odd years and had the same engine in, which I think is pretty cool. That's the generator regulator, which wasn't on it originally, but I found a replacement, so I've popped that on there. I don't know whether it works yet. Okay, so if we just move along here, I can show you the driver's cab and inside. These seats, these are also period seats, so these are original seats. They've got the low sides, which means that these are sort of mid to late war seats. The early Dodges had much higher sides. They were sort of, you know, up about here. So they were a bit trickier to get in and out of. There's your dash panel. Steering column, like a lot of military Second World War vehicles, American-made vehicles, always in Australia, or more often than not, you find the steering wheel's been shoved onto the right-hand side. I don't know why. I think it was just a regulation post-war, but that's where she should go. You can see the little indentation there for the steering column and the clip that holds it on. 4-speed gear. You've got a lot of other bits and pieces. You've got high-low ratio gears, which is one of those handles. You've got your handbrake. And then the dash panels are looking a little bit bare at the moment, but you've got your little holes there for your 5 instruments. You've got your water temperature, you've got your ammeter, you've got your speedo slap bang in the middle, you've got your fuel gauge, and then right at the end I think you've got your oil pressure gauge. Not necessarily in that order, but the speedo always goes in the middle. Okay, so the back, I told you about the fenders. These are the fenders. They're a bit bruised, a bit battered, knocked around a bit, but they're otherwise in pretty good shape. Here's the rear body tub. Now, the thing about the Dodge weapons carrier was that it was supposed to have a fairly wide storage compartment or bay so that you could put all your toolboxes in, or your ammunition boxes and your machine guns. That was the whole point of her. That's what she was supposed to do. These great big sort of rectangular boxes are actually separate bits. They're one-piece units. And at the front you've got these little, I don't know what you call them, compartments. You call them toolboxes. Well, I don't know whether they had toolboxes in them, but they're pretty big. And you can put an awful lot of stuff in there in addition to toolboxes. So complete units. These ones are metal. They're all metal. Now, another difference between the early war Dodge weapons carriers and the late war ones, were that the early war were made out of steel, completely out of steel. Whereas towards the end of the war, the Americans were starting to save on materials and steel was in short supply. So they started making a lot of stuff with a combination of wood and metal. So these ones are all steel. Having a look at the back, you can see some of the support bands and the cross members there, which are also supposed to hold a wooden floor. And you can see, if you look at some of these strips across, you can see these little holes, which is where the planks, in between those, the planks would go. And then you'd have these securing straps that would run from front to back. Now, in the last couple of days, I have been cutting off the remains of 2 steel panels which had been welded across the back, presumably because the wooden planks had all rotted away. And it was a hell of a job. So that's all gone, and now all I've got to do is start whipping off the toolboxes and sending them off to be sandblasted, primed, and then I can, if I need to do any of the body work, I can do it then. So that's the rear end. There you can see the rear diff down there. What else? Is there anything else that I can share with you guys now? Probably not. Here's that's one of the toolbox lids. The guy, one of the owners of this vehicle, decided that when he ran out of bolts, he couldn't secure things properly, so he just welded them in. And that's what he did with the toolbox lids. What's next? Well, I'm going to see if I can try and whip off those two toolboxes, or the two rear wheel arches, and I'm going to send those off. Once that's done, then I'm probably going to start concentrating on the engine here. As you can see, I've taken the head off so that I can look into the bores and the pistons, because she appears to have seized. I don't think it's serious, because the actual bores themselves are in really good condition. There's a bit of surface rust, but apart from that, it's a pretty solid block. So I just think it's seized because it's been sitting out in the open, and I think the extreme weather hasn't helped either. It might have something to do with the valves, the exhaust valves. There's a lot of crud on them. So my next job is to try and see if I can free that up and turn the engine. So yeah, there she is, a Dodge WC52, built in July 1916, and somehow she made her way across the Pacific to Australia. Service history, who knows? I don't think I'll ever be able to find out exactly what unit she was attached to and what she did. But she did have the remains of a white star on the hood, so I'm guessing that she was used by the Americans. Oh, and here's a little bit of a cameo appearance, and this is my shed mate. I think he's about 4 or 5 feet, and he's a carpet python, and he still hasn't gone to sleep. But I tell you what, when I did see him, he scared the living crap out of me. Thankfully, he's super slow, because he's getting ready for about 4 or 5 months sleep. Lucky bastard. Anyway, that's it, guys. I'll sign off. Till the next time. Bye.